Hello everybody, well, welcome to your very first Adobe Illustrator CS6 tutorial. I'm your host Buddy Blackford, and I'll be going over about 100 Illustrator tutorials with you on the New Boston channel. And we're going to be going over how to use the program, basics about it, and give you a good grip on the program so that you can go into the field and start using it. And it gives you a good basis for you to continue to learn on your own. And then maybe in the meantime, or maybe later on, we'll add a whole bunch more tutorials, more advanced and stuff like that. So in this tutorial right now, I'm just going to go over what is Adobe Illustrator CS6 and what do you use it for. You might have been wondering that, so I'm going to answer your question now. So, Illustrator is a program used by both artists and graphic designers to create vector images. And I'll go over what vector images are in a little bit more in depth, but they're basically images that are infinitely scalable. So, you're going to be making images that will then be used for company logos or promotional use, and you can even use it as your own personal work if you need to. You'll be creating things like illustrations, charts, graphs, and diagrams. You can create, like I said before, logos, cartoons, and if you can think of some kind of graphic or illustration or something like that, you can create it in Adobe Illustrator. Now, Adobe Illustrator does have a steep initial learning curve, but once you start getting past it and getting to know how to use the program, then it can become really worthwhile and catapult your graphic design skills heavily. And that's what I'm going to try to teach you in these tutorials. And we're going to get over that curve and we're going to get into it so that we're all comfortable using it. Now, one of the things that I mentioned before was a vector image. And you need to know what a vector image is because it's very important and it's basically what Adobe Illustrator deals with the entire time when you're making it. So these are what you're going to actually create. So think of this. When you have a vector image, you can scale it up as much as you want, and the edges are all going to stay crisp and clean. Same with if you scale it down, you can do the same thing. You can make it as tiny as you want or as large as you want, and the edges are going to stay nice. Now, have you ever tried to take an image or like a picture or a clip art or something like that in Photoshop, and you increase it and it starts getting all blurry and everything like that? Well, Photoshop mainly deals with what's known as raster images, and those are GIFs, JPEGs, TIFFs, PNGs, and those are made up by a grid of pixels. So you'll be dealing with pixels when you're using Photoshop, but when you deal with Illustrator, you're going to be using paths. And if I zoom in on some of these here, if we look at them and I click I'll use this white, it's called a direct selection tool. And if I click on it, you can see that there's a path here. And it's made up by points, anchor points here. And that's what you create your shape with. You're using paths, not pixels. And when you're using these, the program, Illustrator, uses mathematical formulas that is probably proprietary to Adobe. They use those to allow these images to be scaled up and down indefinitely. So one of the things that people get intimidated with Illustrator about is the name kind of makes it sound like you got to know how to draw to be able to use Illustrator. Well, you don't actually have to have any prior knowledge of drawing or painting or anything like that. You don't have to be like this great artist to be able to use it. You can take like an image if you want or a photograph and you can use it as a guide to trace or anything else like that. Just you don't have to be able to draw to be able to use Illustrator properly. And I mean, it does help, and it will help you to be a better graphic artist if you know how to draw, but you don't need to have prior artistic ability. I mean, myself, I'm pretty much terrible at drawing, so I use Illustrator because And I mean, I use it by tracing paths or use existing vector images and things like that. I'm not that great at drawing, but I'm still able to use the program. So what happens if you're using Illustrator and you're using your vector images, but the person that you're working for, your client, decides that they don't want vector images? Well, you're like, what do you want me to use Adobe Illustrator for then to do it? But sometimes clients, they don't always make the most sense. A good thing with Illustrator is that it has the versatility in it to be able to change these into raster images. So you can change the image into a JPEG if you really need to. So one thing that you got to realize though is that after you change it to the raster image, you're not going to be able to change it back to a vector, which sucks, but you can always go back in and trace it. So it's not too bad, but you always want to like save a copy of what you're doing. That's why you always save and everything like that. And we all know that Illustrator is pretty expensive um, for the average Joe, I guess. It's not the most cheap program. But if you go on to Adobe's website, you're able to get a 30-day free trial. I think it's still 30 days. That's the last time I checked. I haven't checked in a little bit, but it's a free trial that you can use, and then you can download that and follow along with the tutorial and get an idea if you want to actually buy the program. And that's just to start out. But that's pretty much all I wanted to go over for the intro, and we can start getting into some more things that deal with using the program a little bit better in the next couple tutorials. So I thank you for watching this one and hope you guys all have a great day. See you later.